Us in studio now, political analyst Joe Tuman. Joe, how does President Trump ignite momentum behind his agenda in his speech tonight?
Well, I think first, from his perspective, speaking to his base, the 40% or so of the people who voted for him, but to sort of generate the enthusiasm that Republicans who are going to be facing midterm elections in a year and a half will feel confident about supporting, he will have to actually go beyond his base and speak to a broader number of people. And so I suspect tonight, Mike, that he's going to talk about defense, obviously enough, and there are legitimate reasons to do that. He'll talk about immigration because all the polling says that's still a very important issue to most people. And he'll talk about tax, which I think is very important to the business community and all those people watching the stock markets go out of control with investment possibilities.
You know what's really fascinating to me, guys, is I've watched a lot of these addresses. What happens if the Democrats boo or sit down or show this favor? How do you think this president will handle that?
Well, I think he's shown a capacity, Sal, in all of his press conferences, for example, to be quite spontaneous, sometimes a little too direct and dismissive. That press conference he had a week ago, which almost seemed like, in some ways, a nervous breakdown on the air, was something he actually felt very good about in process. And so I don't think that he would hesitate to ad lib and to be responsive. But I actually don't think that the Democrats are going to do that tonight. And the simple reason for that is they're aware of the fact the Republicans control everything, and if lots of people aren't happy with this president, his approval ratings are poor right now, frankly, the last thing they want to do is put themselves in the middle of that. In Washington, they say, give the other side enough rope and then see if they hang themselves with this. And so I don't actually see you'll see that kind of behavior tonight.
Talking on Fox and Friends this morning, we heard the president say, my messaging isn't good. He gives himself an A+ for effort, but a C or a C+ for messaging. What do you agree with those grades, and what do you think that might change going forward starting tonight?
Well, I think the grades I would give if he was in one of my classes would probably be a C at this point, simply because he hasn't been effective. But in fairness to him, like if I had a student for the very first time in college who had never given a speech, let's say, I would factor that in. He doesn't have any experience at this level of government. He's certainly very accustomed to being in front of news cameras or to being a person who promotes his own name. Let's be honest, in business, he made his money by promoting a brand, so he certainly understands marketing and messaging. But I have to say, we talked about this in the last hour as well. He's 70 years old. He's the person that he is. He has behaved in many ways in the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, as someone who still doesn't quite understand that he's no longer a candidate, as you mentioned in your introduction. He's the president, and no one's going to take that job away from him unless there's something proven about Russia's influence or something like that, collusion. He's going to be the president, and so he has to understand that criticism, opposition are part of the deal, and that you need to speak to a larger audience. You have to act above the process and not always be reacting. This is why I think his tendency towards Twitter, this instant messaging, commenting on everything, is frankly not just disrespectful to the institution that he now represents, but also to him personally. He has to be above this. And so,
but he says Twitter is the only way that he can get his words out to the people.
Well, and a lot of people say, hey, that's a direct communication between me and my president, and not having the media filter. So his followers actually like him.
Well, there's about 28 million, or maybe now it's 30 million people who follow him, but the United States is a lot bigger than that. And frankly, my point to this is when he's always constantly commenting in the middle of things, when you tweet, you're just sort of saying what you think in the moment. Most of the time, these things come back to bite him in some ways because he hasn't vetted the information, he hasn't checked it out, he hasn't listened to a multiplicity of sources. I appreciate the fact that he's willing to comment in real time on things, but he is more than just Donald Trump at this point. He's the president, and when you're the president, everything you say affects everyone around the world. And so you don't have the luxury anymore that you had as a candidate of being able to shoot from the hip. He now has to be very careful about what he says because his statements can affect stock markets, they can affect the relations between countries, they can affect military possibilities, they can provoke nations like North Korea or Iran to test us by doing things which are a little provocative simply on the basis of what he said.
So do you think he stays broad tonight? Because I think a lot of Americans out there, especially when it comes to the Affordable Care Act, they want specifics.
Yeah.
You talked about your campaign about replacing this Health Care Act.
Yeah.
I want specifics as to how it's going to be done.
Well,
Does he deliver that tonight?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Mike. I would be impressed if he did, but I think there's dissension within his own party as to what to replace it. No question about the repeal part of it. But it's the same thing with the other programs he's spending. $54 billion he's proposed in spending for defense. Where is that money going to come from? He wants to lower taxes. Okay, if you lower taxes, what are your other revenue sources, or are you going to seriously cut things? If you're going to cut entitlement programs, would you touch Medicare? Would you touch Social Security and anger seniors, who are a very potent voting force, by the way?
He says he's not going to.
Well, he claims he's not, but
right.
They're all up for grabs. And what are you going to do with the EPA? If you want to work with Democrats, you don't want to do that. They're going to fight you to death, and some Republicans will, too, on that. I would think, to answer your question, that the smart play for him tonight, when he gets to talking about infrastructure, will be talking about where he would spend that money, and he's proposed a huge amount of money. And again, that's something he's not wrong about. All of us driving around the roads around here can tell you what
it creates jobs,
potholes do.
People working.
But when you're spending that money, again, it comes to this question: what are you taking it out of? You can't just print more money to do these things. And if you're cutting taxes at the same time, you're not bringing in the same level of revenue you're bringing in before. So you can't do everything. And tonight, I don't think we're going to get details. I think he will get broad strokes, and he's going to leave some of the details for later, and he'll leave a lot of the budget questions to the Congress.
All right, we got to end it there. And I hope you're wrong in some way, because I want to hear specifics, too.
I do too.
All right, Joe Tuman, thank you very much. You can watch the President's address to Congress and the American people right here on KTVU Fox 2. Our coverage begins at 6 o'clock tonight. We will also be streaming it live at KTVU.com, and you can get, of course, your local news also tonight on KTVU+.
Well, throughout the morning, ahead of the President.